Good morning. I would like to welcome all of you to the 6th edition of Italian Design Day. Italian Design Day is the annual theme-based event launched in 2017 by the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation in Rome in collaboration with the Italian Ministry of Culture, the Italian Trade Agency, and with the support of the Triennale di Milano Foundation, the Italian Association for Industrial Design, Federlegno Arredo e Salone del Mobile, the International Furniture Fair in Milano. The Italian Design Day is an extensive program of promotional events created by the network of embassies, consulates, Italian cultural institutes, and Italian Trade Commission offices worldwide. It has established itself over the years as an effective instrument in supporting the promotion of design and the internationalization of a strategic industrial sector for Italian exports. Each year, to mark this occasion, different testimonials become the narrators of Italian design and creativity throughout the rest of the world. The theme for this 6th edition of the Italian Design Day is Regeneration, Design in New Technologies for a Sustainable Future. The focus of the Italian Design Day emphasizes the peculiarity of the Italian design capable of renewing itself, its manufacturing processes, and qualitative research on raw materials under the banner of the strategic axis for the relaunch of Italy in full coherence and synergy with Rome's candidacy to host the 2030 World Exposition. The new challenges imposed by climate change and a rapidly changing economy are putting design and production techniques at the base of a new economy that knows how to go beyond waste. Rethinking industrial design is paramount in the function of not only environmental sustainability, but also of a new society based on responsibility and respect for the future generations. To achieve such ambitious goals, on the other hand, constant dialogue and international collaboration between architects and designers are crucial, as well as the support on the part of Italian institutions to all sectors and operators within the sector, from companies to research and to development centers. To celebrate the Italian Design Day here in Toronto, we welcome 2 testimonials, one from Italy and one from Canada. 2 innovative designers who use their expertise and craft to design and create everyday objects in a more sustainable and original way. I wish to thank the Italian Cultural Institute here in Toronto and the George Brown College School of Design for teaming up to organize and present this talk. And I thank all the viewers, all of you, for joining us today from Canada, Italy, around the world. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Consul General. My name is Veronica Manson, and I'm the director of the Italian Cultural Institute here in Toronto. As the Consul said, to celebrate Italian Design Day, and this year is the 6th edition, we have the honor and the pleasure to have with us 2 designers, Antonio Aricò from Italy and Patty Johnson from Canada, that although come from different backgrounds and different cultures, both have similar philosophy in creating and designing objects. They will present their works and then join in a discussion that will be moderated by Professor Luigi Ferrari, Dean of the Center for Arts, Design and Information Technology at George Brown College. And I thank George Brown College for being a partner on this initiative. You are also invited to pose your questions at the end of the presentations using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Now, a few words about our presenters today. Antonio Aricò is an artist and a designer. He is known as the forerunner of a unique approach that mixes crafts and self-production with industrial design. Antonio Aricò was born in 1983 in Reggio Calabria, in Calabria, southern Italy. He closely studied the inspirational work of his grandfather, master carpenter Saverio Zaminga. Aricò went on to study a wide range of design disciplines all over the world, from fashion and industrial design in Milan, jewelry in Scotland, philosophy in Australia, and furnishing in Andalusia, Spain. After working with several studios in Milan, Aricò opened his own studio in 2011. He then successfully collaborated with his grandfather for his first self-produced collection called Back Home. This collection premiered during Milan Design Week in 2012. Aricò frequently collaborates with Italian craftspeople to create unique objects, and he works with major Italian brands, including Barilla, Seletti, Alessi, Vitossi, and so forth. In 2017, he was appointed artistic director of Bialetti. Now, Bialetti is an iconic coffee machine maker in Italy. He has worked with international organizations, including RMIT, University of Melbourne, and Design Boom. Some of Aricò's most iconic objects were designed for Alessi for the Milan Expo in 2015. Aricò's history and works have been presented at the Triennale di Milano, at the Museum of Holon in Tel Aviv, Israel, the NGV in Melbourne, the Italian Embassy in Copenhagen, and in Rome at the Palazzo delle Esposizioni. Now a few words about Patty. Patty Johnson is a designer and an educator who is interested in the interchange between research, design, commerce, and culture. Based in the US and Canada, she collaborates with startups, manufacturers, governments, and other designers to create unique design programs and product collections. She has developed multi-year government-funded programs in countries like Botswana, Guyana, Mexico, as well as the Caribbean region, including a long-term project in Haiti. Johnson also designs product lines for established manufacturers worldwide, like Kilhire, Neen Camper, David Design, and Mabeo. In 2016, an exhibition of new work produced in collaboration with Wendell Castle's iconic furniture and master craftsmen in Rajasthan, India, was featured at Rossana Orlandi Studio during Milan Design Week, and then again at ICFF in 2017. She joined the faculty of the Rhode Island School of Design in 2016 and is an associate professor and graduate program director in the Department of Furniture Design. Now, she's currently working on a project with Peter Mabeo in Botswana that will debut in New York in May 2022, just a few weeks away. Patty Johnson was educated at the University of Toronto and received a Master in Design from Central St. Martin's College of Art and Design in London. So without further ado, I pass my virtual microphone to Antonio Aricò.
Hi to everyone. I would like to thank the Italian Institute of Culture and all the organizers to invite me for this special occasion, and I'm really honored to represent Italian design today. Allora, with this presentation, I will show my work of the last 10 years, but really briefly. The first part, we will see year by year what I do. And then in the last part, I will have some image, some picture regarding the theme that we are talking here. As today I represent Italy, I would like to start with this sentence that is a kind of a little story that I'm using in the last projects and collections I'm designing in the last year. Italy is not a country, it is a sea of stories. Its imaginary is an interweaving of infinite stories that unite the north to the south and the west to the east. Okay. So basically, in this document, there is a resume of the story of the last 10 years. And I want to underline how everything started. Basically, in 2012, I presented my first collection during Design Week in Milan, especially in this design district, really experimental, that was Ventura Lambrate. The collection was entitled Back Home, and basically was the beginning of the introduction of this theme that then became the main theme of my work, that is the connection between industrial design and mass production and artisanal techniques that are risking to disappear. So in 2012, I presented this collection that was called Back Home, that basically it means that I went back from my travels and my studies and my first experiences in the discipline of industrial design. I went back to southern Italy and I designed, while working with Italian companies, I designed and built a collection with my grandfather that was presented in Milan during Design Week. Basically from that, so all the collection was based on the wood production, ceramics, textile, and in those years, the theme of art craft was not really popular. There was more popular to talk about makers and self-production, but the theme of art craft was starting to appear here in Italy as a need to go back to antique traditions and Italian identity and culture. So from that year, I started to present several pieces with as well other Italian artisans connected to this theme. In 2014, I opened my studio house in Milan that was completely designed by me and built by my grandfather, and is my nest in Milan, where I used to welcome friends, clients, and everyone that wants to see my work. This kind of practice was a kind of live portfolio, the show that was able to show what I was able to do, and this attracted the attention of several Italian design companies like Seletti and Alessi. So I started as well to design objects for everyone that people were able to buy in the shops. In 2016, I was invited in Australia as a visiting professor at RMIT, and I usually go there to teach still. And I presented different works, both with industrial design companies like Alessi and artisanal works, presenting during institutional moments in Italy, presenting this new trend regarding art craft and design. In 2017, I started to work a lot with industrial design because I was working a lot for Bialetti. It is this Italian design company of the mocha machine, coffee mocha machine. And basically, I did a lot of experience around the world, in China, Taiwan. So I was really immersed in this industrial design mass production process. That is something that was really useful for me to learn a lot of things, but that showed me my need to be more concentrated on aircraft, limited editions, and artisanal techniques, because I think is what I really like, and I think that represents for me the real R&D personal department to do research and exploration before designing mass production products. So in 2018, this need to present real materials, tasty materials like wood, ceramic, textile, started to be really present again. So nowadays I keep designing Italian products where we can see the taste of the past of antique techniques. And in 2020, I was chosen as art director in southern Italy for this design festival. It was a kind of design week in the southern Italy that I kind of transformed into a folk festival connected to design. So all the designers coming from Italy and around the world were invited to think design, but being connected to values and the way of thinking from popular Italian culture. Last year, as in Italy, in all the world, we are living special years. Last year, I decided to present my first collaboration with an international design brand that is Moi, a Dutch brand founded by Marcel Wanders. I decided to present this collection not physically in Milan, but from any imaginary place that actually is in my hometown in Calabria, where I basically bought an old house and land where I want to one day to build my studio, and I used it as a setting for the presentation of this collection of carpets and pillows, inspired by Italian Byzantine culture of mosaics connected to northern Italy, Ravenna, and southern Italy, Calabria. So basically, what I try to do when I narrate my work is always to connect the warmth of Mediterranean culture to the cold and rational aspect of industrial design, to take the best from both the worlds and to try to stay far from the worst of both worlds, because I think that the mix of these two really far away worlds represents what really always fascinated me about this discipline. So you can see how usually I get inspiration from Italian archetypes from the past, and I try to make them present again. This part of the presentation that is really quick is just a series of stimulus that I think maybe they can be useful for us for our conversation, or in general they are useful to understand better this kind of approach. So for me, sustainable design is not only about reusing materials and thinking about the waste and all these things that we learn at school, but sustainable thinking is as well a way of thinking design, how in a way to reuse values and approaches from the making culture of the past. So even before industrial design was born, because the manufacture world and all the handcraft and artcraft Italian world and all around the world is something that in a way is more pure, is more genuine. So we have to try to do not forget to make new products and new things. All in this way, we respecting the past, the materials, the values of the way of our grandfathers and who taught us all these. We can make new products in a respectful way for the next generations. So this is not what is right and what is wrong, but is just to make something happen in our minds, no? So for example, on one side, we have design icons that our day we know as design icons because a lot of communication has been done regarding this object and these products, because in their time they were inventing, they were presenting something extremely new. So we have the Eclisse by Vico Magistretti that was in metal and plastic and was a light. And on this side, we have an interpretation that I wanted to do for the design festival in Southern Italy. Is the same product, but in terracotta, in clay, and is not a light, but is a candle holder. So it's a primitive way and authentic, genuine way to see this product. And I think is interesting because it makes us to think about industrial revolution, mass production, but as well all the way of thinking about products. You know, this is a funny way to connect something that we sometimes we consider really elitarian and not only democratic, because we know that design, especially the design icons that we can find in museums all over the world, they are something really sophisticated. For example, like the 16 animals from Enzo Mari, and I wanted to dress them as typical Southern Italian food that you can find during the popular festivals, that are the mostaccioli, these typical honey bread sweets done for some festivals. So on this side, we find the Panton chair that was a kind of the icon of the plastic is fantastic movement during the 60s. And on the other side, there is the redesign that I did last year of an iconic chair that is really typical from the villages, Italian villages, and that never had the opportunity to go in a museum, never had the opportunity to become a design icon. So I like sometimes to go and take this kind of archetypes that are part of our memory, that represent souvenir from our childhood. Here there is on 2014 this Ossidiana, that is a coffee machine designed by Mario Trimarchi for Alessi, that is really interesting, sculptural, futuristic. And on the other side there is the Chicca, a little sweet coffee machine that I designed for Bialetti, that is done in ceramic, because in this way the costs of the production were really downgraded. So basically the down part was already existing and the upper part is done with ceramic. So the mold for the ceramic is really a lot less expensive than for metal. So I like to compare these objects. And as well, in the last years, we had this boom in the design world of plastic, colorful plastic, because at one point we were thinking that that was design, simplicity, minimal forms, minimal shapes. And on the other side, there is a toy that I built with my grandfather that reminds Southern Italian traditions, and that is built with a lot of precious materials, but at the same time really simple. And it's just to give some ideas about how sometimes as designers we risk to lose the soul of products, the identity of our culture. No, so this is a funny mix. I try to be quick. We have the Compasso d'Oro, designed and in 1954 as the National Design Prize, that was representing the best designer, the best architect of the year in Italy. And in 2018, I was invited by Design Boom to design the International Design Oscars for the design world. More, let's say, as a pop phenomena, as this prize had been won by Miuccia Prada, Virgil Abloh, all international, let's say, archistar. But the idea was, again, to give importance not to the designers, but to the makers, to the artisans. Indeed, these little Mary represent a mix between the Golden Madonnina of Milan and a Sicilian Mary from Milazzo that is called the Virgin of the Artisans, that is made of wood and has got in the hands a hammer and a stair saddle. So basically, by mixing these, I wanted to give importance to who is behind the scenes, so all the makers and artisans. And again, the cartel products called componibili, they represent what design at one point was, and this process, this approach has been copied by IKEA and many big companies. And on the other side, there are these cabinets that I designed with cathedral glass makers from Piedmont. That is a completely different approach, but it represents what is happening today in the design world. We always try to look for something unique, for something that is done in limited edition, because we are evolving. We are evolving, and we consider mass production and plastic something connected to, not as a status symbol, let's say. So again, here we have the Mela from Ensomari, that is a print, and on the other side we have a work that I did for the design festival in Southern Italy that was embroidered on tulle. We have the Juicy Salif by Philip Stark that represent a design icon, because in this year was really fascinating to have a product that was almost impossible to understand which kind of product it was. And on the other side, we have a little souvenir, something really pop and folkloristic, that was used by Alessi as a gift, as a souvenir during the Italian Expo in Milan in 2015. And here is the last object that is actually the first product that I designed in 2011. There is a watering can done in plastic on one side, designed by Hiro Arnio in that year. And on the other side, there is this watering can done in ceramic 11 years ago. So contemporary design can sometimes refresh objects and typologies and give them a new dimension connected to traditional techniques that are unfortunately slowly disappearing. That's it. Grazie.
Grazie, Antonio. That was beautiful. What beautiful object and colorful and there was lots of ingenuity. Thank you very much. And I would like to pass the microphone now to Patty Johnson.
Good morning or afternoon now, I guess. Thank you very much. That was wonderful, Antonio. I really enjoyed that. I'm going to talk about my work, and in many ways our work is related. So I'm going to show some of my work and the work I've done in global settings and other work. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what drives me as a designer. This continues to expand over, it just continues to grow and expand. So I'll start by saying that product-oriented design and practice is being changed by new technologies, global marketing, and the internationalization of products and production. Designers need to be able to think about the identity of products and their cultural backgrounds, issues underpinned by the need for innovation and economic, sustainable, and ethical thinking. What drives me? Well, I'll just say it. Even though it's a bit out of fashion, the modernist and utopian ideals of design drive me. When I was a younger designer, I defined this as accessible, affordable, and pared down. But as my practice has evolved, it has taken on a broader meaning and has come to include the idea that regional initiatives can sometimes rebalance the often lopsided free flows of globalization. Many of the projects, like New Caribbean Design, that I participated in, many of my projects, suggest that designers look beyond the individualism of Western consumer philosophies that currently drive design practice to include investigations of craft production and indigenous artifact in developing countries, and to be inclusive of those partners and makers. Evelyn Harris made these extraordinary baskets in the Blue Mountains of Jamaica. As a direct descendant of Nanny of the Maroons were peoples brought from Ghana, originally as slaves, to be enslaved, who fought their Spanish colonizers and lived as free people in Jamaica. She's a direct descendant of one of their leaders. She seeks to combine traditional approaches with hand production to create an unusual contemporary object that reflects the historical and cultural biography of her region and her peoples. What inspires me? New collaborations like this cross-disciplinary project by the Danish art collective Superflex that brings together the skills of a designer, an engineer, and a scientist to bear on the problem of an off-the-grid village in Cambodia, and through an associative effort, create lighting that is generated from waste. Superflex takes these outcomes and exhibits them in galleries and museums. And of course, I'm sure many of you are familiar with this very famous light designed in the 60s and 40s, I guess, in Copenhagen. In general, as a designer, you are at the mercy of the craftsman, and I mean that in a good way. Mostly this relationship produces wonderful results at an amazingly quick pace, and handmade production does allow you to make things that are still impossible for machines. The variations and imperfections give life to details and can add a literal human touch to minimal designs. This is the Leanna Cane factory floor in Guyana, South America. I'm inspired by the idea that the best products of the next decades will be the result of a reconciliation of what had previously been understood to be opposition, specialization and generalization, the individual and the collective, globality and locality, the avant-garde and the popular. Everything relates to everything. Accepting this without losing ourselves or sacrificing the quality of the things we make will be the great challenge. I'm inspired by mobility. I like the idea that we can work anywhere and combine the strengths of complementary groups to build new linkages, new cultures, and new ideas. This is the Maybale factory in Botswana, Africa, and in a long distance and long time design partnership, we produce furniture and products that are both familiar and original using a network studio structure. It is this factory's smallness and the underdogginess of its manufacturer that creates for me a new energy in design, a fresh shot, a subversive frisson, when the Mound Windsor appears in Design Within Reach's catalog alongside other iconic products of the 20th century. More urgently, I'm driven by a changing global design, the impact of the changing global design culture on micro manufacturers like the YY in Guyana, South America. And I believe that these issues demarcate a contemporary frontier of design practice. Cross-cultural collaborations and projects can provide a challenge to our common exclusion of things on the edge and help to protect marginalized communities from destabilizing political and global market forces. Above all, I love that these collisions of culture can strike a new balance between redundancy and relevance and explore the friction between the preservationist view of the handmade as intangible heritage and its real status as living tradition, and therefore inherently and constantly innovating and adapting. And I love the creativity and resourcefulness that you can see in the most difficult of places and circumstances. This is street furniture and branch coat stand on Regent Street in Georgetown, Guyana, is as audacious to me as an installation off-site at the ICFF, and maybe because of its lack of self-consciousness, it becomes a source of inspiration. The immediacy and simplicity of that scene is one of those free-floating ideas and images that all designers carry around with them, and that at some point synthesize through the design process to reemerge as a new product. The simple chair and bench from the Bay of Furniture take its direction from the direct construction of the Georgetown street furniture. I am interested in the interchange between research and design and commerce and culture, and so is Javier Servin in Guanajuato, Mexico. Servin's dedication to research, design principles, and his willingness to share knowledge with other groups make his company a model of best practice principles. Ceramica Servin is completely self-sustaining and handles all aspects of the production process, from the mixing of clay bodies and glazes through mold making to final production and firing. And so if sometimes designers like us have assumed that the nature of first world design practice and problem solving is appropriate for application in all situations with little regard for the local context, Ceramica Servin and others like Hamilton Pottery in Barbados are there to remind us that good product frequently does not just begin with market research, and that a collaborative approach can reinvigorate the design process. I'm inspired by new ways of thinking about business and design models. This draft system describes a non-hierarchical model of values, qualities, and activities, and is the result of a project with Design Work Center at the Rotman School of Management in Toronto. It addresses new concerns and investigates new ways of combining the skills of artisan clusters in Guanajuato, Mexico, with design competencies, and to harness these to act as single powerful exporters to international markets. I think three of the most important issues which face the global community as we enter the new century, well, after we enter the new century, are unemployment, the exploitation of labor, and the environment. If the great thinkers and motivators of the arts and crafts movement were still with us, these are the issues they would focus on, and I think we should too. Western approaches can often overlook the values of the other 90%, as the Cooper Hewitt exhibition proclaimed. The other 90%, like the voodoo artists and priests in Haiti, where in the real futuristic world we live in, everything is indeed made by hand. I guess I'm inspired by being called up onto the carpet. Historically in the West, design education has trained practitioners to operate autocratically as key decision makers in the development of products in a very much top-down process. The limitations of this approach are clear, especially in relation to craft-based economies and historical and social structures in other places. These tobacco vases are made in Jacmel, Haiti, under a progressive model of production called One Product, One Village, which I think is self-explanatory. They are also a brilliant example of the innovative use of an indigenous material and the traditional technique of paper mache. Love, freedom, flow, family, connection, continuity, handmade. This is what inspires the companies I have worked with in Haiti, Jamaica, Barbados, Dominica, Trinidad, and Guyana, and they inspire me. My experience designing for these manufacturers and creative communities is one of the most enriching of my life and profoundly changed the way I think about design. I learned that people-centered design has a middle component, living between ethnography and interface. Hand manufacturing is the reality in much of the world, and designers sitting at their desks, sending off PDFs to unknown destinations may be a modern paradigm, but ultimately a hollow one. I would encourage designers to go and visit where their products are made, and especially with the people who make them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Patty. I would like to invite now on stage Luigi Ferrara, Dean of the School of Design at the George Brown College. And I would like to, well, first of all, if for our viewers, if they want to pose their questions, to use the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. Thank you, Luigi.
Well, it's so thrilling to hear the presentations by Antonio and Patty. I think you can sense that there's a shared sensibility and a kind of reverence for the making of designs, and the process of making is integral to the design that you see in both their work. I wanted to maybe start by asking a question myself about the influence of family. I know that for myself, I work on sustainable design, but the more and more I learned about sustainability, I basically learned that it is the philosophy that my father lived throughout his life. He made for me my two favorite chairs that he made from pieces of wood that had been thrown out by someone. And those chairs to this day are my favorite chairs. And ironically, he made chairs that look exactly like chairs that Enzo Mari designed for self-assembly. And I met Enzo Mari years later, and I still have his little drawings, Antonio, of the little animals that he did for my children when he stayed with us. But I do believe that there is this sort of genealogy of design that comes to us. And I'm just wondering if you both could comment on that genealogy in your lives. Patty, why don't you start first, and then Antonio can follow. You're on mute, Patty.
Apple, there we go. Sorry. I think that's a great observation. I'm not sure there's such a, I'm not sure I have that kind of experience in my life, life. But I will say that, my practice and the way I've worked is a very different approach, and you get very close to people and you really get to know about their lives. You understand, the kind of issues they're dealing with, and that becomes very much a part of the process, and has to, because there's no let's say social security nets in these places. So often the factories you work with, the people who own them, they actually, if workers become ill, they pay for the medical treatment. It's a very different approach, and it's very moving. And I would say if there's any kind of, it's not genealogy, but if there's any kind of family aspect of this, that would be it for me.
You've made new family by working with them. Antonio, for you.
I think was what I really liked the talk of Patty, and I think that there was an expression, a sentence that can a bit connect everything, and as well your question about the family, the genealogy, etc. That basically, as designers and as thinkers, we don't have to think that what is right and what is wrong. We have to be fascinated by extreme words, and we have to mix everything. So I think is fascinating about the story of our fathers and our grandfathers and the family of the makers, etc., is that after we study a lot about this discipline that is industrial design. At one point, there is a kind of epiphany in the simple teachings from our family, our past, and from the teachings of people that built houses, built family with 6, 7 grandchildren, and people that had to, after the war, had to do everything with little. So I think what is a kind of what is really fascinating about the respect that we have to have regarding these masters is that thanks to thinkers like Enzo Mari, and thanks to the books that we read regarding industrial design, then we have to have the strength and the coherence to think about the values of who really did this thing in a genuine way, like the guy of the bench with the tree, no? So I think that we saw in Patty's presentation. So I think that being able to live in this kind of border between deep culture and the spontaneous culture, teachings from university, schools, books, and spontaneous teaching from the real lives of makers and artisans and the industrial design companies as well, because there is a lot of making in there as well. Less poetic, but there is a lot of making as well. So I think that we are able to take everything from the pop culture, the poetic and romantic culture from the past, and everything. We are able to appreciate and to work in a more ethical way.
So one of our attendees has asked that he's noted how wonderful your products are. He's wondering, are they available in Canada? Antonio, Patty, are your products for sale now in Canada?
Regarding me, I have many products that are sold on First Dibs and Pamono, that are 2 international marketplace. So many of my products, they can be bought in Canada. And anyway, I have a little shop on my website. Regarding the things that I do are artisanal. So you can write directly to me. It's a really simple approach, but regarding a lot of products, you can find on international marketplace.
Okay. And Patty, in your case, is it similar? Do you have a shop as well, or?
Yeah, same. First Dibs has a lot of the products that I showed today. You can also buy directly from Kielhauer Nienkamper and David Design in Sweden. And I know the Man Windsor is available at a furnishing store in Toronto. His name escapes me now, but maybe I'll send it to you, Luigi, when I remember it. And also will be available along with some other Mabeo products on Design Within Reach soon.
Terrific. Now, I noticed that both of you talked about research and how the craft or the interaction with the craftspeople and the people who make your products and the traditions of craft are a form of research. Can you expand a little bit on that? What does it mean for you? I'll start with Antonio and then Patty.
Basically, what I wanted to say when I said that for me, working with the artisans is a kind of R&D, research and development department before I go and work in a real world, is because there are no rules. I mean, they have so much experience that sometimes they invent things spontaneously without knowing that. It's like a fish that know how to swim. It's really natural. So it means that you can make mistakes because there are no production lines. So if you make a mistakes, you can then waste or reuse the material or just waste your time, but you learn. So the research for me is when you have the possibility to make mistakes and then to do again. While when you do when you prepare those PDF to be sent around the world for the industrial production, you cannot make mistake. So for me, is not a research. You learn from the experience, but is let's say the moment of the performance. You have to performance really well. So this is my point of view.
And Patty?
I would agree with that. And I would take it one step farther in that sometimes those mistakes have made products even better than I could ever have imagined or drawn. And that's a happy. And if you can get into a state where you have, very few expectations, you don't show up with a bunch of stuff drawn, you just go in on the ground and work directly with people. The results will be the exchange will be far more rewarding for all. And, then the results will be far better. That's my experience.
Yes. Is happening something fun and interesting to me. I'm designing a collection for an industrial design company, and they are asking me to make mistakes. I mean, they are asking me to make my drawings to be imperfect, to be spontaneous. So all the products, I mean, in a slight way, just to keep that not in a weird way, but just to keep that immediacy that you have with artisans, makers. That sometimes when you think too much about the product to redesign, to be perfect, to be performing, etc., then it's just another product.
Yeah. So you differentiate by those imperfections and the human touch as well. Faisal Mullah, who's in our audience, who's a professor of ecological sustainability at the University of Guelph and brought his students to our presentation. He's very taken by both of your work, and he's describing what he sees as a biocultural diversity in the design, especially in both the work of Antonio and Patty in different ways. What do you think of this idea of biodiversity that we find in sustainability, but actually proposing it in design?
For me, is always connected to the need of transmitting the idea of specific local areas, stories, culture, costumes, and I think this diversity is what makes the world, the differences, because as industrial design workers, let's say, is easy sometimes to promote trends that talks the same language. In this moment, I think we are promoting new trends to express this diversity and freedom and taste from different spots. As in the nature, we have different flora and faunas all around the world. We have different stories and way of dressing and way of talking and way of making that we have in a sustainable way. Try to do not lose.
And Patty, before you pick up and answer this one, I also want to say, because this biodiversity also leads us to the use of indigeneity and their cultures. And sometimes people might say, are we appropriating their culture? So how do you address that, that debate or that that conversation?
I don't. Okay, well, but I will. Of course, that's a big conversation right now, and certainly a big conversation in the Rhode Island School of Design. And maybe I'll answer that by we had a very interesting panel come just prior to COVID to discuss this very topic. So cultural appropriation, and very interesting. It was a very diverse group of artists and designers. You know, Virgil Abloh was one. A longtime professor from Harvard was another. I forget his name now. And there's a very young artist, and they all said the same thing: that in creative practice there is no appropriation. There can't be any appropriation because you're working against what creativity is, basically. Now that doesn't mean you shouldn't reflect on what you've done, and if there's something not right about what you've done, you need to correct that, or you need to, you know, it's a constant process, the self-reflection and change and growth for all people involved. But to just say cultural appropriation is a bad thing is I have strong feelings about that I won't start yelling about right now.
Okay. On that front, I know that our time is coming to a close. There was another question about if you'll be leading any workshops on design and sustainability for the public. It gave me an idea, Veronica. Maybe we should plan one and invite Antonio and Patty to work together and maybe offer this in the coming year. Now that things the things are opening up after COVID, it would be wonderful to host the both of you and bring students and members of the public together to think about these issues and to design in this way. So on that note, I'll hand it back to Veronica to close. And thank you so much for sharing your wonderful work with us.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Luigi. And thank you, Antonio and Patty. This was very, very interesting and right to the point of eco-sustainability and a different way to create and produce everyday objects. And we are really, I think this is really one of the focus points of the next few years. A different way to produce, a different way to create, and therefore a different way to design objects. And yes, Luigi, I would love to organize a workshop in person as soon as the COVID restrictions will be lifted, hopefully in the next few months, and then we're coming out of the tunnel, so that because it is such a topic subject, it will be, I'm pretty sure, will be studied and talked about and discussed in the future. And so yes, we're on board. Well, thank you very much, Antonio. I know it's late in Italy right now. Thank you for being with us and for your beautiful design. Thank you, Patty, for really interesting, again, way to produce objects in a different circular economy, and also not just with traditional industrial techniques. Very, very important. Thank you all for being with us, celebrating Italian Design Day. And I'll actually invite you to visit our website, Italian Cultural Institute in Toronto. We do have an upcoming exhibition in the next, hopefully, few days. The exhibition is still in transit, and it will be exactly on eco-design. The exhibition will present about 50 objects, and one of them is by Antonio, one of his famous chairs, and all designed in a very ecological way. And the exhibition is actually about the 3 R's: reuse, recycle, and reduce. So it is really the way design worldwide is moving. So please check with our website for the opening date. I thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks to Patty. Thanks, Veronica. Thanks, Luigi. Ciao, grazie.
Grazie.
Ciao, Bella.
Ciao.
Pleasure. Ciao.
Talk soon.